I Could Not Stop for Death. Written by Dana Frederick. Narrated by Nicole Jones. Death didn't look how I expected. Granted, I never really thought about him looking like anything. But I didn't expect a business suit and tie, much less that to be paired with the typical black hood filled with void, and black gloves. Despite not expecting Death's appearance, I immediately knew it was him. "Elizabeth Richardson," Death said. Not a question. Given who I was dealing with, I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked around. A crowd of people encircled us. Friday night in downtown Nashville was always busy, but this group wasn't talking or laughing or any of the usual carousing. Subdued murmurs rippled through those gathered. A few crouched on the ground. At my feet laid my own body. As expected, dead. Blood against the corner of a large stone planter and oozing from a wound on my head explained how. I looked back to Death. "Yeah, Lizzie Richardson, that's me." Death gave me a nod and pressed a button on his phone before continuing. "Elizabeth, aka Lizzie Richardson. Cause of death, collision with a bird." "A bird?" I interrupted him. "What, like a pigeon?" Death shook his head. "A bird scooter." "I'm dead because I got run down by one of those idiot scooters?" Silently, he turned the phone screen toward me. It played a video of the moment of my death. Some yahoo with a cowboy hat and Ed Hardy t-shirt, one arm in the air and wooing, zipped by me. Granted, I was looking down at my phone, but that didn't make me responsible for this dickweed's bad scootering. The handlebar hit me in the ribs. I stumbled, went down, cracking my temple against the planter. The jackass didn't even look back. His stupid, wooing face burned into my eyeballs. I looked back to Death. With all the warmth of a head of lettuce, he said, "Your time has come." Then he motioned to a black sedan parked on the street next to us. "If you will." In his other hand, he held what I assumed were the keys. One thought snarled in my head. Screw that noise. I snatched the keys and pretended to hurl them down the sidewalk before hiding them in my hand, curled against my hip. I may not have been able to see Death's face, but I could feel the gawping disbelief roll off him. "You'd better go get them," I said, "unless I'm off the hook now." Hands balling into fists, Death stomped off, grumbling. "I'm not paid enough for this. Should have been a dermatologist." As soon as he was beyond the outer threshold of the crowd, I ran around to the driver's side of the car, mashing the unlock button on the key fob. At least being dead meant I could phase through the onlookers, though it felt like pushing through warm oatmeal. "Hey!" Death shouted. The stupid, chirpy unlocking mechanism had alerted him. He sprinted back toward me. I ripped open the door and practically fell in, pulling the door shut behind me. Death slid across the hood of the car. I stabbed the key fob's lock button with my thumb again and again. Death yanked at the car door. He yanked again. Half sprawled across the seat, I gaped at him. I'd made it. I could barely believe it. "Elizabeth!" he shouted, pounding on the window. "Open up! What do you think you're doing?" "I'm gonna find the dipwad that killed me," I replied. "And what? Haunt him?" "Maybe." Okay, I hadn't gotten that far yet, but I'd figure it out. "You don't know how to haunt. You haven't been trained or certified." Instead of answering him, I jammed the key into the ignition and started the car. "Don't do this," Death said. "There are a million people out here. You won't find him." I paused, thinking. "Death, can you die?" The cowled head cocked to the side. "No. Why?" I turned the wheel and pressed the gas, whipping the car out of the space. The back wheels rolled over a bump that might have been Death's legs. A blue streak of swears followed, confirming my suspicions. In the rear view, as I pulled away, I saw him get up, shaking his fist at me. An angry, well-dressed shadow against the lights of Dedrick Street. I admit, the car wasn't really a great idea. If I was going to find this dude, I was going to have to drive slowly. Not that that'd be an issue once I hit some of the more popular downtown areas. And that would give Death a chance to catch up with me. There weren't any cowboy-hatted scooter users on this street that I could see, though, so I could get ahead of him for the moment. Maybe. I wasn't exactly an expert on Death's powers. Given he hadn't magicked his keys back into his hand, I figured his abilities must have some limitations. Passing the Hotel Indigo, I still didn't see the guy. Probably headed to 2nd Avenue to bro it up. I weaved through traffic as fast as I could. Yes, I was being that douchebag on the road. Shockingly, no one seemed fussed about me. I mean, I was sort of trying to be considerate. Not one person had even flipped me the bird, which I counted as a victory. Things got dicey when I hit first. The street and sidewalks were packed. I beeped the horn like an entitled idiot, as if that would really make anyone move out of my way. There was nowhere to go. Cars clogged the street both ways. Gripping the steering wheel, I looked at the sidewalk. Would Death's car mow down pedestrians? Well, of course. It was a car. Still, it was worth a try. Maybe I'd come up behind Ed Hardy T. A girl can wish, anyway. Slowly, I edged toward the pavement, following the people on their way to park and beeping the whole way. "Move!" I shouted from inside my ebony bubble of security. No way was I going to roll down the windows in case Death snuck up on me. Still, I wanted to give people plenty of warning. No one so much as looked at me. Were people really this self-involved? Well, the great wooing butt-face was, anyway. I sucked in a breath through my gritted teeth as I gunned the engine to get the car up on the curb. One wheel up and no incidents. So far. Crap, was I really going to drive down the sidewalk? Are you really going to give up now? I asked myself in response. Well, you did already steal Death's car. I released my breath in a puff and laid on the horn. No one so much as looked my way. An insane thought crawled into my brain. I remembered the way I had passed through the onlookers gathered around the scene of my death. Pressing the gas again, I pushed the next wheel up onto the sidewalk. Nothing. No reaction anywhere. They can't see me, I realized aloud. I already sort of knew that, but I hadn't really allowed myself to believe it about the car. I gave it an affectionate pat on the steering wheel. We, my new Onyx steed and I, rolled on. A woman in impossibly high heels stumbled right into the car's path. Without thinking, I cried, "Look out!" and slammed on the brakes. Too late. The woman steadied herself while standing in the center of the hood. It sort of wavered around her body like heat waves over pavement in the summer. A huge grin spread across my face. Finding Broy McBroface was going to be a lot easier now. Once again, I let up on the brakes and the car glided forward. I watched, mouth hanging open, as the girl in the heels slid through the car like water. I craned my head around to watch the trunk rematerialize after we'd passed her. Bang! I loosed a swear and stomped on the brakes, jerking with the car. I slowly turned back toward the windshield. What had gone wrong? Who had I killed? Death. He squatted on the hood like a frickin' superhero. I could feel the force of his glare even from that empty cowl. "Lizzie, this is a company car." His voice was tight with barely restrained frustration. "If I have to damage it because you're throwing a tantrum—" "I am not throwing a tantrum!" I shouted back. "It's not fair. I shouldn't be dead." Death shook his head. "People die all the time, Lizzie. When we get to the underworld, the counselors there can help you adjust." "You are crap at this. You know that?" I pressed the gas. Death stumbled forward on the hood but held on. I slammed the brakes again. His feet shot back, but he held on to the lip of the hood next to the windshield. It left him lying across the hood like a deflated black balloon. "Do what you want," I grumbled. "I'm finding that meathead with or without you as a hood ornament." I pushed the car up to 15, scanning the people we passed for the Ed Hardy cowboy. We glided past the George Jones, around the corner and onto 2nd. I slowed. People thronged every foot of pavement. My eyes flicked every which way, searching through all of them. "You still don't have a plan," Death called, still hanging on to the hood. "Even if you do find him, there's nothing you can do." The words dropped hunks of ice into my stomach. "Shut up! You don't know what I'm capable of," I snapped. "There!" I almost couldn't believe I'd actually found him. The guy who killed me stood in a circle of other dudes. Bird scooters littered around their feet, right in one of the doorways between B.B. King's Blues Club and Coyote Ugly. I stopped the car and looked at Death. He too had spotted the group. His hood was turned around toward them. He looked back at me. In what he might have intended to be a smooth motion but more resembled a cartoon, Death slid down the hood and back onto the pavement. He walked over to my killer and motioned. an invitation to come forward. I hunched down behind the steering wheel and narrowed my eyes at him. I revved the engine, hoping to scare Death off. He didn't move. Fine, I didn't need to play his game. I inched the car forward, intending to surround the cowboy-beheaded mouth breather with the car. I'd just phase through the wall of BB Kings and thunk. I cocked my head and glared like an indignant puppy at the wall I'd just hit. I pressed the gas and the tires squealed against the sidewalk. Death face-palmed into his black-gloved hand. What the crap? I looked to Death and gestured at the wall like this was somehow his fault. You can't drive through buildings, Lizzie, he drawled. But I can drive through people? If Death responded, I didn't hear it. I returned my attention to the car and tried to shimmy back, wiggle forward, squeeze in, but the dipweed was too far inside the doorway. I let my head fall against the steering wheel. Beep, it bawled. I lifted my head and beat it repeatedly against the horn. Honk, 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 honk. I heard Death shouting between honks. I snapped my head up. It's not fair, I screeched at him. His shoulders lifted and then deflated as he sighed. I know it's not. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I was going to go see Hamilton. It finally came to town. I was just trying to make a living, Death said. Armed robbery in my convenience store. Not even mine. I just worked there. I flopped back against the seat and scowled at the douchebag who'd taken my life and didn't even realize it. Do you want to come yell at him? Death called. I slid my eyes to him. No tricks, I promise. What did it matter? Even if Death was lying, I couldn't exactly spend eternity inside his car. Well, I could probably try, but I had a feeling Grim Reapers Incorporated, or whatever organization the car belonged to, would probably take more serious action to get it back. I pulled the door handle and slumped out of the car. Death didn't approach. My feet strained to remain planted as I approached my idiot killer, but I forced them forward. Finally, I drew level with Death and faced the bro monster. My fists balled at my sides while words surged up my throat. You don't even know what you did! And I bet if you did, you wouldn't care. I jabbed a finger toward the scooters lying around our feet. I bet you haven't once thought how someone might trip over these idiot things. On I raged, cursing and shrieking, and all the while my killer carried on chatting and laughing. It poured gasoline on my anger. Finally, I screamed, I won't wish death on you. There's already too much of that. But I hope karma really bites you in the ass. Even though I knew it wouldn't do anything, I reeled back and threw a punch into the side of the dude's head. He stumbled back, looked around, and rubbed his face. Chad, what's up? Asked one of his bro friends. You okay? I don't know. I just felt something hit me, Chad replied. Chad, I muttered. Of course his name is Chad. But a bloom of warmth glowed in me, impressed I'd been able to even affect that much. Death was apparently impressed too. Hey, not bad. You might have a future as a professional haunter. He then cleared his throat and straightened his tie. Seriously, though, you'd need training first. There are rules about haunting. I gave a sardonic laugh. I couldn't bring myself to feel excited about that prospect at the moment. Those counselors Death mentioned seemed more and more like a good idea. I motioned to the car. Keys are in the ignition. I hesitated. I hope you don't get in trouble because of me. He only grumbled in response. My ire, being pretty sensitive at the moment, got up. Maybe if you worked on your manner a little bit. I left the comment hanging. As he retrieved his keys, Death said, It's one of my performance improvement goals for this quarter. He took a deep breath. His next words sounded more like a practice speech, but I appreciated them anyway. Apologies if I've made your transition more difficult. I managed a smile. It's okay. I think we're probably even now anyway. If eyebrows made noise, I swear I could hear him raising one at me. He said nothing, however, and swept a hand toward the car. The passenger side was blocked, and I suspected Death didn't want to take any more chances with me. So scuttling across the driver's seat and into the passenger it was. He climbed in after me and pulled back onto the road. I looked back at the idiot who'd caused my death. It still hurt. I suspected it was going to hurt for a while, but I wasn't alone. I turned back to look at Death, whose slumped posture told me the poor guy was going to need a rest after tonight. Maybe I'd send him flowers to say sorry, assuming that was a thing in the underworld. He'd only been trying to do his job. I did hope he'd improve his death-side manner, though. Taking a deep breath, I began, "So, what can I expect from the afterlife?"